Shooters Connection offers products for competition shooters by competition shooters. With over 80 years of combined competition shooting experience, Shooters Connection is staffed by master and grandmaster shooters who live the shooting sports every day. We offer same-day shipping. Shooters Connection also sponsors over 100 of your matches every single year. So when it comes to finding everything you need to compete as a beginner or a seasoned grandmaster, Shooters Connection is the only name you need to know. Online at shootersconnectionstore.com.
Welcome to the Hit Factor. I'm Jeremy. He's Jeff. Or if you're friends of Potato, I'm Jeff. He's Jeremy. And you're going to get us confused at the... just for the whole nationals. We are fresh off shooting nationals, both Jeff and I. The Iron Sight National, Handgun Nationals, really limited optics nationals is what it turned into. So we've got all sorts of stuff to talk about that. And from the trip to the match and the stages, which everybody's been talking about stages, I'm sure, to winners that we've had, some surprising winners, some not surprising winners, and just our trip experience in general. You'll notice also, if you're watching on video, Jeff has made himself quite comfortable, and he got this new little futon, and so he is lounging from far away, and you get to look at his feet. If that's something that is anything for you, then you can see his feet, which is kind of strange to me. But
yeah, this wasn't planned out. We just I came in here and undid some stuff and stepped back here, so it's not a great setup, and I can't read comments or anything because the computer's across the room. But we might work with it. I mean, this could be cool. I'm glad y'all can't see the rest of this room because it is trashed. But I mean, it's kind of cool. Got the couch, got my awards. I mean, it could be fun. So we'll roll with it. See if this develops into like a warmer feel,
yeah, a more relaxed feel. I mean, the viewers are excited because they can see much less of your face, so they don't have to see your tiny little chin, as Thea likes to say, as you have lost some facial hair recently, and she likes to make fun of your tiny little chin. So that's good for them.
Yeah.
So we are back from nationals. We drove. I was when I first looked up this match, I thought it was a 14-hour drive. And it's like, okay, we can do that all day Thursday. We'll leave kind of early, but even then we can still get there in time to see our stages for the next day, and we'll be fine. Well, kind of find out is an 18-hour drive, and not so fine to do all in one day afterwards. So we got to drive a long ways. Our buddy Brett Thomas rode with us, and we had great discussion on the way out there. Some theological discussions were fun to have, that are always fun and entertaining to have, at least entertaining, I'm sure. And we got there, and the day we got there, the weather was great. Things were looking good, and we kind of got our first look at stages. And Jeff, what did you think just when you first saw the stages?
So I would say first look at the stages these looked incredibly difficult, and I mean, it was pretty apparent just from the walkthrough that the hit factors were going to be pretty low on most of the stages. Lots of moving to a position, setting up, taking your time, taking really difficult shots. So a lot of that. And so first impression is this is incredibly difficult. Hit factors are going to be low. And then that kind of evolved into feeling like this was too difficult this should be different. So I mean, there was some like negativity that formed in my head like right off the bat as far as the match goes, honestly.
Yeah, you know, when we first walked the stages and Nils and Bob, they got to the house later. They didn't get to walk stages that day. I mean, I told Nils, said, this is the most difficult match I've ever seen. I've never shot or seen a match that was more difficult than this one. And his initial response was like, well, yeah, but we kind of always say that whenever we walk stages. We're like, oh, this is a really hard match. It looks really tough. And then when we shoot it, it's like, oh, maybe that wasn't quite so bad. It wasn't terrible.
Is a very fair assessment, a very fair comment.
Yes. What I will say is that after shooting it, I feel like I didn't think it was hard enough whenever I walked the stages. I think it was actually harder than what I initially thought, having walked the stages. So the amount of partials that they have were somewhat ridiculous. Like their use of the vertical half targets, I think that's a bogus target anyway. Anything outside like 5 yards, that's a pretty bogus target. But just the overwhelming use of partial targets, but then all mini poppers, the range doesn't own a big popper. So all mini poppers, but then let's push those out to 25 and 30 yards. Lots of those at distance, and just lots of distance on all the paper targets was just incredibly difficult. The standard stage, our first stage of the match was a standard stage. And they set up a standard stage that was impossible for absolutely everyone. Nobody got close. Nobody even got all 12 hits or all 24 hits on paper. So like it was
4 second time on standards. So that's like 4 seconds with a reload in each string.
Right. Yeah. So you're talking the first string was at 17 yards. It was two on each, so 6 rounds, reload, 2 on each, another 6 rounds freestyle. And you had 4 seconds to do that. So it was a visual start. It was a turning target. So let's say at best you get a 1 second draw. You're down to 3 seconds. And then let's say you get a 1.3 reload. Like that's just hitting everything absolutely perfectly. That does not leave you with a whole lot of time to shoot a whole lot of points. And I came out of that. I shot 69 points out of a 69 points out of a potential 120, and I felt great about it.
Yeah, which like 69 was a really solid run.
Yeah, it was solid, especially for first stage of the match. Certainly a lot of nerves there. Could I have added 10 more points fairly easily? Probably, but a 69 was super solid. Jeff walked out of there with, what'd you have, like a 39?
No, 53.
Oh, a 53. Somebody else on our squad had like a 39. With a 53. Sorry, I was not trying to pick on you, but Jeff walked out of there with a 53, and it's like, well, he was down 20 points basically to start the match, and
yeah.
I don't know. That was just a bit absurd. It showed a fair amount of, like, whoever set that up kind of demonstrated they just don't understand. They don't understand math. They don't understand our sport. They don't understand the shooting or anything like that.
I'll be honest, like walking out first stage of nationals, being one of the first shooters, because they lined up 4 shooters, and I was one of those 4. And then, like, I should have approached it differently, but I mean, that was brutal to be the first one, a stage where I didn't think it would be brutal, but thinking back, like, to walk up and place like really good shots quickly and then nail a perfect load, like right off the bat, that was tough. That was really tough.
Yeah. It just, The 4-second part time didn't leave you time to actually do or execute anything. And that was just kind of how.
That's what I should have done. I
should
not have even thought about that load. It being the first stage, like normally a first stage, I'll kind of ease back a little bit and like, okay, let's establish what shooting is on this first stage and kind of get calibrated.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of skipped that on this stage. I was just like, all right, it's time to grip and rip. Let's go. And dude, yeah, it was bad. I think I shot like 3 alpha and like 7 or 9 deltas or something like that. Like it was wild and ugly.
Yeah. And Jeff didn't shoot it bad. Like it just ended up with more deltas than alphas. And in those time constraints, it's 40 degrees in the morning. It's freezing cold. And first stage of the match, like it's kind of tough to control the gun at that standpoint. But that was the start of our match. We were off and running. And so we'll just talk about stages overall before we get into our matches and stuff. I think that'll be good. So my opinion on the stages overall, there were some that were just the extreme level of difficulty was just way too high. There were people, if you go through practice score and just look at the miss totals for people, like you're talking 40, 50, 60 mics for the match. I mean, like they're averaging 3 mics per stage. And one of those, that's actually more than that because that doesn't include the non-penalty mics for the standard stage. And I'm assuming most people didn't have mics on the build drill stage. So you're talking 60 plus mics for 19 stages. So that's over 3 mics per stage. That's insane. Like the
absolute bloodbath when it came to mics. And it really shifted the match from like, okay, this is a speed and points match. It shifted from that to, okay, this is a speed and a pass-fail match. This is a speed and can you hit the targets match now. So it really shifted what the match was, I felt like. And majority of the stages were that. I think probably like, 15 or 16 of them or something like that. Like very difficult.
Yep.
And then there was like 4 or 6 like shorter fast ones. And then of those shorter fast ones, there was about 2 that were actually like decent stages where there could be some separation. And then the other 4 were just fast little stages where like everybody's going to be right around the same time and same points.
Yeah, and even those short stages, the disaster factor was pretty high. Like they still had, even the short fast stages still had partials, like no shoot partials at past 10 yards on most of those. There was only like 2 or 3 that didn't have that. So the disaster was still pretty high. So yeah, Jeff used the pass fail analogy. It became real evident that honestly your time was irrelevant. Like how fast you shot was irrelevant. Everybody was shooting the same time on the stages. And then if you were slower, usually it's because you had misses or pickups on steel. But like as far like there was no real separation on the time because whenever the targets are this hard, everybody has to sit there and aim and wait on them to aim. So there was a particular stage that it is maybe, I think it's the most boring stage I've ever shot in my life. It was 24 rounds. You went to 3 positions and you shot it was all the targets were stacked targets. So an open on the bottom and a partial on top. And you shot that exact same target position. How many rounds was it? 24 rounds. And it was that exact same target presentation, almost the same distance for the whole stage. You went to one position, you shot 8 rounds, one more position, 8 rounds, the next position, 8 rounds. And it was the lamest thing I've ever seen. And then you finished and you started looking at times on that stage and everybody ran the exact same time. like the time was almost all the same, and then it was just a matter, did you clip a no shoot or did you have a miss? And that was basically the differentiation there, and that was really kind of how a massive part of the match was.
Yeah, and that wasn't a fast stage, which was the thing that made it really dumb was that it was 24 round, like 20. I think pretty much everybody ran it in like 21 to 22 seconds.
Yep.
And yeah, everybody ran the same plan. Yeah, it was just like Jeremy said, that was a pretty boring stage.
Unbelievably boring, just terrible. Like, I can understand why a local match might set something up like that, just like really ease of setup, and you know, you don't have to think of, like, I can understand that. But literally they had all these walls set out and everything. It was a mirror stage. All they had to do is set up 3 boxes and set up the two target arrays and just say engage it from each box, and it would have been the exact same stage with no setup. So it was literally just a box to box stage they put a whole lot more work into building it. Yeah. I've never been to a match where there were so many planned standing loads for single stack and even low cap guns. Like there were, it was somewhat unbelievable to me that you would get to the end of a stage and you'd sit and look up and there's 12 rounds required, there's 15 rounds required, there's 16 rounds required. And yeah, could you pick some esoteric place like 10 yards further back and create a new position 10 yards further away and engage some steel so that you wouldn't have that standing load at the front? Yes, like you technically could do that, but only a dumb person would do that. So the stages as a whole were, I just thought, really poorly thought out. Somebody was talking to Jake before the match and said, man, there's a lot of partials out here. And he just pointed to a sign that said Nationals. Said, well, this is Nationals. Kind of get used to it. This is what it's supposed to be. And I'm sorry, but whoever set this up should never be allowed to set up a match again. Certainly never should be allowed to set up a Nationals, because it was absurd. And anybody with any experience could have looked at the stages ahead of time and known that they were absurd.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know what else to say about the stages other than that they were kind of over the top. And it really just tested one skill set pretty much throughout the match. Was there just wasn't a lot of different skills being tested. So that's a big bummer. I did not see a single person that was having fun at that match. I know it's Nationals, like, we're not necessarily building stuff for the fun of the competitor at that necessarily, but at some point that should be a part of the equation a little bit. Our sport's supposed to be fun. They're supposed to be enjoyable.
I mean, if you're testing a lot of skills, it is going to be fun. It is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of different skills tested. There was a lot of hard shooting, like a lot of long, difficult shots, and there was some really hard leans in shooting. There was some really awkward positional shooting which you had to do. That was tested just over and over and over and over. I remember one target that I shot on the move, maybe 2. There was really no opportunity for that. Not much anyway, at all. If it was mildly close, it was usually partialed pretty hard. I can think of one target that I shot that was open, and I shot it while I was taking a couple steps. And other than that, those short ones, and then, you know, if it wasn't a super hard lean, super hard shot, it was the really short, fast ones, which, I mean, that's just pretty much as fast as you can pull a trigger and move your feet. And that was about it there.
Yeah. So
we're not terribly interesting. There wasn't a ton of opportunity on those to make anything happen. There was one where you could try to, like, pick up some some mini poppers at like 10-ish yards while you were moving in, and I tried to do that and screwed myself pretty bad. That was my fault. That wasn't anything else other than my fault, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So those are the stages. Like that's kind of what our experience was, what my experience was with the stages. So I don't know what else to say about that, other than hopefully that won't be set up like that again in the future. They literally could have not had a single partial target in the whole match. They could have removed all the partials, and it still would have been a very challenging match with just all open targets. The distances that they had it at, they could have had all open targets, no partials, and it still would have been a very challenging match, and actually probably would have been in a much more appropriate match for people. Would have been more interesting because there would have been some more opportunities to try and blend some positions here and there, shoot some stuff on the move, take some risks.
Yeah, I would even say, like, take the partials out of that match, and it gets 25% more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that alone, like, they could have kept all the same stages, and I wouldn't have loved it. But take the partials out, and now it's a fairly interesting match.
Yeah, so take the partials out and take out the stack targets. Those are the two things I would say. Like like there were stack targets everywhere, which is kind of a lazy person's way of just adding rounds to a match, right? Because you don't create any sort of new position, you don't create anything new. You just stack targets, which just adds rounds. So I would say all open targets and get rid of those stack targets, which are just, I don't know, I think they're lame. And yeah, the match gets a whole lot cooler, a whole lot more interesting.
Yeah.
So
anyway, that's the stages. Let's talk about the match for you and I.
Yeah, so we'll say it at the front. Jeff finished 4th. I finished 8th, and I think both of us feel okay about our finishes. I think there's probably a fair level of disappointment that we were in position to finish better, and we just kind of fumbled it on the last day a bit, me more than Jeff. But yeah, so that's how we finished. So into day 1, how were you feeling about your match into day 1?
Not great. It was a rough. I felt like it was a pretty rough first day. Rough starting out with the standards and basically being 20 points behind right off the bat. And then it seemed like then the very next stage was not great. The next stage was decent. But it was I never really got into a rhythm. It's usually like if I can get into where like I have 2 decent stages in a row, then I kind of build this momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And I can kind of push harder and harder and harder as I build momentum. And that's when I can shoot a really good match. But day 1, that wasn't happening. That did not happen day 1. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, that was good. Oh, that was not great. Oh, that was good. That was not great. Which was really just the nature of the match. It was just extremely difficult. But yeah, that was mine. Because you shot pretty good standards to start off.
Mm-hmm.
We had Seeklander's score to look at. We saw what he shot. You shot really close to him. I think he shot a 71. You shot a 69.
Yeah.
So you had to be feeling decent coming off the first stage.
Yeah, coming off standards, I was super happy with the 69. Like that, I didn't feel bad about that at all. It could have gone a whole lot worse. I absolutely smashed all 3 loads, to me that was where I knew I could donate a whole lot of points, because if you've bobbled the load at all, you had no time to fix it. Like you weren't going to get any rounds off if you bobbled the load. And so the fact that I hit all of those, I knew like, okay, yeah, I could have got some better points. Because I shot some mics. Like I was rushing hard enough that I had some, looking at the amount of shots that I fired and the amount of misses I had, actually shot a couple of mics. But, took it. I was okay with it.
Oh, we got Potato joining us here.
Potato's coming back on. Sweet. So we then went into I can't remember. Yeah, it was our next stage had a bobber. I was real happy with my stage plan. I shot it well. So that was the one mover in the match that I shot a target in between the activator and the mover. After that, I just simply all the activators were minis, and the movers were moving pretty darn quickly after it, such that I didn't feel it was worth it to try to squeeze stuff in. And so I shot the activator, and I was afraid I missed it. And so I kind of paused and hesitated, like looking, and I see it, it's going down. So then I went and shot the target in between it and went to the bobber. Ended up firing 3 rounds at the bobber and I felt pretty good about it, and shot the rest of the stage. It was fine, and come back and there's a miss there. So that kind of hurt. It kind of start of the match again kind of puts you at I was feeling about like Jeff was at that point, because he was about 17, 20 points down after the standards, and then I'm coming in and second stage I have a mic on a fairly easy moving target, and same, put you at the same kind of 15 to 17 points down there. So
and
that was
on it, the activators, the whole match. Activators were minis. Right? The cables were pretty tight, like they weren't sitting on the ground. They were very tight, and they were the super light gauge cable, so they were very quick to activate. There usually was no time to do. There was like maybe 1 or 2 opportunities to make something happen, but for the most part, it was you were going to hit the mini and then go to the mover.
Yeah, for me, the hit factors were so low that it just wasn't like trying to squeeze a little bit of time by going to a target in between the activator. Just didn't seem worth it to me because the hit factors being so low. So I was perfectly fine just going straight to the moving targets and getting solid hits. Then our very next stage was another kind of short course, and this one basically gave us the option of you could shoot it 8 and 8, and you would have 1 extra round, and you would activate a clamshell from one side that you couldn't shoot it from. If you went to 8, you shot 2 steel that activated a clamshell, and you went to the other side, and you had to shoot basically 15 or 16 yard headshots is what that left you. So pretty risky to do that. Your other option was to shoot 7 on one side, go to the other side and go to 9 and risk a standing load if you have a miss on the activator steel, or if you have any sort of makeup shot. And so it was risky either way. I was up and back in my head of what I wanted to do, and literally the shooter before I went, I changed my mind and decided, look, I'm going to 9. I need to go to 9. I need to make that happen. I need to do it. And so went to 9 and pulled it off. Had a solid stage, and actually felt that was a confidence booster for me for that day. Is that, hey, like you went to 9, you shot well, because it was an array of 9. It's not like the other shots were easy. Like you were still shooting. I'm pretty sure you had a zebra on the inside, if I'm remembering that correctly. So still really challenging shooting. And so to do all that and go to 9, that was somewhat a confidence booster for me. And I'm actually surprised that Jeff is saying he was as disappointed as he was with day 1, because Jeff actually shot well. He didn't lose a lot of ground day 1. It was never, the stages never gave the opportunity to feel like you're shooting well. There was never, like, that was almost just never in it. Like there was never like, oh yeah, I crushed that stage. You were never going to feel that way pretty much about anything. So yeah, Jeff was shooting really well. We got to our last stage of the day, which was the really boring one with all the stacked targets that I mentioned earlier. And that was an interesting stage for me. Not in any way because the stage was interesting. The stage was absolutely terrible. But that was the first stage. That was the first stage of the match where I got a little bit results based in my thinking. And it was not that I'm worrying about speed or time. It was I'm going to do everything I can to hone in and shoot A's on all these targets. And I was really just trying to focus on shooting A's, and I was actually aiming really hard. I ended up I clipped one no shoot, and then I threw a mic over the top of another one, and still had a few deltas on it. Like, it was still kind of ugly from that standpoint. Yeah. The fascinating thing is that by me thinking about trying to shoot a lot of A's, it induced the same error as if whenever I think about I'm going to try to be fast. The error was the same, even though I was going to the complete opposite spectrum. And so that was a really good reminder for me that, hey, don't get results based in any way. Stay on my process of what I had been doing in practice, what I had been doing leading up to it, and stay with that. Basically being grip the gun really hard and stay in contact with the trigger. Don't be slapping the trigger a whole bunch. So that ended day one. That ended me, and like that hurt me really bad. That was 25 to 30 match points. That hurt. Jeff was actually up, I think, 28 or some odd match points after day one, and so that was kind of the difference maker there between just the two of us. And I wasn't super dejected, because like the day could have gone worse. Every stage you're looking at, if you had a miss, you're like, well, that sucks, but that's understandable.
Yeah, that was kind of the nature of the match, being with the difficulty and everything. The point swings, you had a potential for large point swings, rather than, pick up a couple points here, a couple points there. There was really a lot more potential for those 15, 20, 25 point swings. Yeah.
And so that was the end of our day ones. We shot in the morning. It was pretty cold that morning. That wasn't a whole lot of fun, because you're trying to shoot really difficult targets, and you can barely feel your hands. I mean, you can feel your hands, but they're just not functioning at peak what you want whenever it's that cold. And then the next day, so we get the long break at that point, which the long break was much needed and was really nice. And we go into day two with probably the hardest stage of the match as our second stage. So we knew that was looming in, and there were a few other difficult stages on that section 3 area, but it was also the most points of the match. That was 164 rounds, whereas what we shot the day one was 130 rounds, and our last day was only 110 rounds, roughly. Mm-hmm. So day two, Jeff went first on day one. So day two, yeah, we're coming out. We get to do a little bit of a warm-up, which was nice. For me, it was just 4 magazines, just kind of shooting at some steel. But it was actually really good. That seemed to be pretty effective, just in kind of just nice to have just – you don't go to the golf course, and I mean, you can go to the golf course and not go to the driving range, but if you want to play well, you will go and, hit some balls on the driving range and that sort of stuff. So it was nice to be able to do that at this match. But yeah, day two, honestly, day two went pretty well. Shot well. I didn't have any penalties day two, which was great. Shot fairly well. There were a couple things that kind of cost some time and slowed some things down a little bit, but for the most part, was hanging out good stages. I made up ground on Jeff, which was due mostly to one target for him, but we ended up that day being less than a point apart for the match total. So day two was good for me. I was feeling good. The really difficult stage of the match, I shot that well enough. Definitely left some time out there with misses on 20-yard mini poppers, but yeah, made it. I survived it, type deal. Survived it and had a decent run on it, no penalties, which was good. This match, I've never had so many planned extra shots on static targets. I don't know how many I had through the match, but I had tons of targets where I was planning on shooting 3 at. It was like, I'm just shooting 3 no matter what. I'm not even gonna plan just 2. I'm not gonna give myself the option of only shooting 2. I'm shooting 3 because they were just so far that a tiny little error that you may not even can see would end up with a miss. So yeah, I felt decent about day 2.
Yeah, so day 2 for me was probably my best and worst day, because it started out, I pretty much crushed, I think, like the first 5 stages. I think it was 5. Like after we had finished shooting, the Super Squad hadn't shot those stages yet, but after we finished shooting, I was like over 97% on the first 5 stages for that day of shot them. I think I won 3 of them. Shot really strong. That was the best stretch of shooting I did the whole match. And then the last 2 stages that we shot that day, I think.
They were the last 2 stages of the zone, but not the last 2 you shot.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because we went back around and went back to the front. Yeah. But yeah, the last 2 stages in the zone. So it was like 19 and 20 or 20 and 21.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the short one of them was a short one, and I shot myself into a standing reload and then clipped a no shoot. And then in the other one, I planned 3 shots on somewhere around 20-yard zebra, and I put all 3 into the hardcover. All 3 close together, very close together, but all in.
Yeah.
So that kind of negated for me, like all the great shooting that I had done or that I did that day. It just kind of leveled me out. Like I could have made some really great ground on that day, and those 2 stages they kind of bombed it for me. So I did my best shooting and worst shooting on day 2. And that stage that Jeremy was talking about, stage 18, that was the most difficult stage. There was like this huge mental build up to shooting that, and we both had like 3 or 4 contingency plans on that stage. I was like, okay, I'm in this position. If I have to shoot to empty, hitting these 2 steel, then I'm going to pick them up over here. And if I hit these 3 when I come in, I'm going to immediately rip a standing load. And then if I don't, then I'll just keep going. But if I get over here and I still have steel left, then I'll shoot them from here, and then I'll do an extra load here. So it was brutal planning that stage.
And I went even past all my contingency plans. I ended up with a plan that wasn't even in my contingency. So
yeah, actually, Jeremy did a really good job of thinking on the fly, which is generally something you don't want to do.
No.
But if you have the ability to do it and you execute by happenstance, then awesome. And Jeremy kind of did that on that and had a good run. We had very close runs on that one.
Mm-hmm.
We were right there with each other. I think he got me by a little bit.
I was like a 4-2. He was a 4-1. It was very, very close.
And when we finished that stage, like with no penalties, like just finished it with no penalties. Dude, I felt about the same as when we finished running the race in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Like I was cloud 9 dopamine hit, dude, when we finished shooting that. Yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah. That one was a huge letdown. There's huge build up to it and a huge letdown after it. For sure.
Yeah.
So we finished day 2, and honestly, like I said, we're within a point of each other, but the Super Squad had only shot 1 zone of stages. At that point, they had shot what we shot day 1. They had shot our zone 2, so they hadn't shot what we shot that day. But you could look at scores, you could see where we're at. We saw where we're at with Seeklander, and we were in really good position to finish well for the match. So I was was not upset with where I was shooting. I was pretty happy with where we at. Could we have done better? Yes. Literally everybody was saying that at that match. You were gonna kind of train wreck something. So I was fairly happy with where I was at. I was talking with Jeff in the car. I think he was fairly happy with where he was at. He sounds, honestly, I'm surprised how disappointed Jeff is sounding in his day 1 and 2, because he didn't sound like this in Ohio. So maybe he was just trying to be positive. But he was.
Said, day 2, I did my best shooting and my worst shooting, but definitely mood was the highest of all the days after.
Yeah. And like, to be fair, Jeff saying he did his worst shooting. It was on a 20-yard zebra target that had you shot actually 2 targets, 2 open targets. You're actually able to shoot kind of on the move. But it was one of the rare instances in the match. And then you had a very specific spot you had to stop and hit exactly to shoot like a 20-yard zebra. So did he have misses on that? Yes. That target reached, like, dude, I bet I would be surprised if less than 60% of the field had misses and penalties on that target. Like our squad alone, I shot it clean. I don't think there were 2 other shooters who shot that target clean on our squad. And I know lots of the super squad guys had penalties on that target. So he's saying he shot bad. It was 1 target that was that kind of ate his lunch, but so he wasn't shooting bad. He was shooting very well. He's in really good position. We were both kind of looking back at scores now. It was kind of tough to know at the end. We were very much in position to finish in the top 3. Obviously, both of us probably wouldn't have been able to be in the top 3, but both of us were in that position to have been really competitive for the top 3. Maybe had we shot really well day 3, maybe in the second place. I don't think either of us were in position to win the match at that point.
No.
But top 3 was definitely very much in the mix. So day 3 is a morning. It's a really quick turnaround for us that we shot the evening on day 2. We shoot in the morning the next day, and it's cold. It's 38 degrees when we get up. We're bundled up. I have 3 long sleeve shirts on, a down jacket and another jacket on, gloves. I have sweatpants underneath my 511 pants to keep those warm. You got gloves with hand warmers on. So it was a bit of a production just to try to stay warm enough to be able to function and shoot. And that was energy sapping for sure.
Yeah,
so
because like you said, I heard you describing it to someone else. Like, you could have been fairly comfortable without all the clothing and layers and hand warmers. You really need to be warm. Like, you need to be feeling like you can be aggressive, and so you need your hands to not be slow.
Your whole body can be perfectly comfortable, but if your digits don't move freely with the exact speed you want them to, it just doesn't work. Absolutely.
Exactly.
I'm
Welcome,
in a cold
Potato.
place, and I'm in a cold place, and I wouldn't judge anyone for bundling up that much to try and keep their hands warm.
Yeah, that's the name of the game. Freaking Fitz is out there in shorts. I guess living in upstate New York or something like that does that to you. But he was out there in shorts. I think he was kind of like, yeah, it's a little cold. Like, my hands are a little bit cold out here. So okay, day 3. How'd you feel about day 3?
Day 3, I felt probably slightly worse than day 1 for me. I think I only shot 1 penalty, maybe. I can't even remember. But
I think that's right. I think you only had 3 on the match.
But yeah, it was not great. I don't know if it was just being cold or fatigue. I don't know. But it took me a long time to get into positions. I made a lot of extra shots. Missed positions, just little things that cost me a couple seconds here and there, and ended up just being really off the pace on day 3. Yeah, that was kind of the story for the day. It was just off the pace.
Yeah. So when I'm going to talk about day 3, so I slept really poorly this whole the whole time. I don't think I got more than 5 hours of sleep. And this is starting even in the hotel. I love Brett. Brett was snoring like a freaking freight train that first night in the hotel. I woke up at like 4 o'clock. I needed to go to the bathroom, and I couldn't go back to sleep. So I was just awake at 4. We had driven till pretty late that night before. I'm up at 4. We're going to walk stages, and the day before nationals, you can't sleep. You wake up early, and that was just it the whole time. I just never got any sleep. And then you add in the cold and trying to figure out the cold and how do we shoot in the cold. Because even the day that we shot in the afternoon, even then it still rained on us off and on throughout the day. So it was constantly taking jacket on, taking jacket off. So even that, and I think looking back to it, like time I got to day 3, yes, there was some nerves because I was in a position I hadn't been in a while, and that I was actually competitive to have a good match. And anybody that's listening to the podcast knows I've been struggling a lot with my performances in the last 2 or 3 years. So it was good to be competitive. But I do think the fatigue, just my physical fatigue, finally caught up to me. And then the fatigue of the match finally I think it just finally kind of caught up to me, such that my first stage of day 3, I ended up with 3 mics, and 2 of them were on an open target at 17 yards, and I just missed the target. There was another target right next to it that I had like an Alpha and Charlie hit, and then the next one had no hits. I remember my sights. I actually remember seeing my sights on that. I don't know what happened. That was a pretty big, when you're, Jeff and I were 1 point apart at this point, feeling like, hey, I could have a good finish here. It's the last day. It's the smallest point total day of the match for us. And I just gave up 45 match points. Just like that. That was tough for me. I felt like I kept fighting, like I kept trying. I didn't just give up at that point, but it was just a struggle all the rest of the day. It was just a struggle, and ended up 8th. Again, not playing the woulda, coulda, shoulda. Last stage of the match, went to war with some steel. That would have put me over Seeklander. Any one of those hits on that first stage, get one of those hits, and I'm up over Henning. It could have been in a 5th place, a 6th place very easily. Again, that's the woulda, coulda, shoulda. But I do think kind of the fatigue of just trying to shoot perfectly for 3 days, on top of the cold, on top of the lack of sleep and all that, caught up to me. And so I've got to be better, got to be mentally stronger, and just got to get my fundamentals better going forward.
You need mouth tape and an eye mask. That's what you need.
I mean, I can just close my eyes, and that seems to work to, make things dark.
You need Tren and melatonin.
So melatonin, I did have melatonin on board. That still sometimes isn't enough for me. So, that's okay. Would I've loved to finish better than where I did? Yes. But it is what it is. What I'm taking away from is I I've wanted to just simply be competitive again because I have not been competitive. I was competitive again. There's now a mental switch that now my training isn't such that I need to be trained to be competitive again. We're there. I need to train so that I can be competitive at the end of the match when I'm in contention, and for everything to still go well or shoot even better at that point. I don't know if that changes how I'm training all that much, but there's just a mental switch maybe going into matches, whether it's less of a, man, am I going to embarrass myself at this match, or no, like we're going to be ready so that last few stages we're there to try and win the match.
Yeah. Yep. And then as far as finishing goes, I mean, Elias won single stack. He absolutely crushed this match. And I don't know if like this type of shooting is just his forte, like just the long hard shots, or if he was just like that ready for any match. I really don't know, but he absolutely crushed it. And then Caesar, which I don't know where he's from, foreign guy. He finished second at European Handgun Championship and Classic. He came over and shot, and I had no idea what to expect from him, honestly. And he shot really well, shooting minor. Shot really fast, shot way faster than the rest of us. Even Elias, I think he might have put like 15 seconds on Elias.
He was 14 seconds faster than Elias.
Yeah.
He shot the same number of points down, same number of Charlies and Deltas. He was just 14 seconds faster with 6. He had 6 penalties, 6 mics.
Yeah. So.
And he's Cesar shop for anyone who orders IPSC stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. He owns that.
So he shot really well. Came in second, and then Vlieger came in third, and he shot really well. Which me and him were right there. I think he was 25 points up or something like that on me. So. We were right there. We were right there with him. But and then I finished ahead of TGO, Rob Latham, which I've never done before. So that was a big accomplishment for myself. I'm very proud of myself for that. And finished ahead of Seaclander, which I knew I could do. So I mean, I'm not terribly disappointed with the match. Obviously, I wanted to win, but. That just wasn't in the cards on that day, or on those days. So, and
we should note the Henning shot a great match. He ended up in 6th place. Henning had an approach that he was simply like he just aimed really hard the whole match. He was not particularly fast. He was, he was 30 seconds slower than Jeff and I, but he just shot really, really clean. And at that match, that was a really good strategy.
Yeah, really good. That's not...
So 5 deltas to Elias is 21.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, how many times do you see a national champion with 21 deltas?
So I have a question for you guys that maybe is embedded in all of this. I know the stages... I've heard many complaints from many people about the stages, so leave that aside for 1 second and just think about the shot difficulty. If there were routinely matches that demanded this, are these shots that could become reasonable?
No. Like honestly, like the difficulty level.
Just with the way an iron sight actually works, these are just fundamentally unreasonable shots.
Well, like yeah, I mean, like a lot of people just their factory guns, like are like their group size is the A zone size. Right. So if they hold perfect, or I mean, not the A zone size, is the size of brown that they're shooting at. Right. So if they hold perfectly in the middle, they can and they break the shot perfectly. Yes, they can guarantee to get hits. But if they're off at all, they could still be aiming. They could still be aiming well enough that they're aiming within the scoring zone and yet getting penalized for that. Like a lot of these mini poppers are. Like people's front sights are wider than the mini poppers that they're shooting at, right? So No, I actually think it was beyond. I think it went beyond what should be expected of guys definitely shooting iron-sighted guns.
Yeah, I mean, I was Jeremy and I were talking about it and talking about some of the stages, and like if I set a lot of these stages up, I'll say at least half of them. If I set those stages up in practice and I shot them 5 or 10 times as slow as I needed to, it would not be clean each time. I could not shoot them clean consistently, no matter how hard I tried. If I shot as slow as
which is to say that there were shots required that you can't make on demand. For reasons, physical limitations of the sighting systems, limitations of the mechanical accuracy of the guns.
Yeah. I mean,
shots I wouldn't make 100% of the time on demand. No.
And it was the sheer volume of those shots, right? Like it's one thing to have a few of those shots.
One of those on one stage.
Right. When it's every single stage to have all of those, like just the sheer volume of those was just too much. Look, we can pick on Fitz a little bit. Fitz, we shot with Fitz. We got to meet Fitz, which was great. Here you've got a guy, I think he's B class, if I remember right. Like Jeff and I were talking about him. Look, he was a college athlete. He ran track, ran hurdles. So he can move. He moves around fine. He gets around from point A to point B fine. He understands the sport fine. Like his gun handling skills, I didn't see anything crazy with that. He's invested in the sport. And look, he walks away with, I'm not picking on him, but he walks away with 26 mics. And honestly, like, he shouldn't feel bad about that. Maybe he does, but he shouldn't even feel bad about that. It's just that was going to be the case. If you were in that B, C, A class range, like, you're going to get your lunch eaten. And a lot of GMs got their lunch eaten at this match. So it was just too much. Just too much.
So this is my old hobby horse, and now I'm glad you guys can back me up on it, which is optics and iron sights don't ever belong in the same nationals.
Right.
Because if you look at the top two guys in limited optics who shoot very different styles, between the two of them, they have one penalty. Mm-hmm. So Max shoots, maybe you guys already covered this, but Max shoots one no-shoot, Casey shoots clean.
Yeah.
It's KC shooting clean, right? And they shoot very different styles but the tools they have available to them make those shots challenging but reasonable. Mm-hmm. And then you look in the iron sight divisions, and it doesn't look like that. Even shooters on that same level.
Right.
And so I think if you want to have a national match and you want to combine divisions in a national match for a lot of reasons we have to, I don't think you can make a national match that's appropriate for iron-sighted and optic-sighted guns.
Yeah. And
I do think optic-sighted guns, not this particular match, but that level of difficulty is appropriate.
Yeah, like you can certainly ratchet up the level of difficulty for the dot guns, and at the same time, like, can we in some way just be okay that their hit factors are higher? Like, this match certainly felt like it was a sense of, like, we are going to try to make the shooters make mistakes. It was like they wanted to see penalties, they wanted to see errors, and they wanted to keep those hit factors super low. And at some point, like, I feel like can we get some? Yeah, we can have some stages that are like that, okay? But let's not have a whole match of it. Let's have a couple of those at nationals. Let's have some that are really fast. Let's have some that are open targets at 15 to 20 yards, such that, look, you can rail on those targets if you want. You're going to give up points. You may give up penalties. But it is that how many points can I get in as fast as possible type thing, when you actually let hit factor be the determining point and not just penalties, whether it's misses on mini poppers at distance or it's actual shot penalties. Let's let people use their skills in a way to try to figure out how they want to win the match. And I just feel like that wasn't really the case for this match.
Yeah, and I mean, like we said, they were just testing the same thing over and over again. Like, if they wanted to make a whole match of low hit factor stages, they found one way to do it, and they did it for the whole match, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of ways to depress hit factor.
Yeah, there's multiple ways to depress hit factor, and whoever designed this match doesn't know that.
They did not demonstrate that at this match with 21 stages to choose from. They didn't really demonstrate that too well here.
Yeah.
All right, let's go into really quick. We're running long here. Let's go into predictions and results for the match. Revolver. Jeff, do you still have those?
We all picked Poggi, and Poggi won.
Okay, we got the correct winner for Revolver. Did we go past?
We went to 2, and I was wrong, and you said McGinty, and so you were right.
Oh, there we go. Poggi's a friend of mine.
Or somebody said McGinty. It might not have been you.
I can't remember if I said McGinty or Wolf. I might have said Wolf.
I think you said Wolf, honestly.
What do we start? Revolver?
We're looking at Revolver, yeah. I know now that Rich had not been training at all coming up to this match, so this wasn't really his match. And honestly, like, this wasn't a match that suited Poggi all that well. He wins because he's faster than the other guys. Like, he's just faster than them. If Josh Lentz had been here, it would have been very interesting because Josh Lentz he doesn't compete, I don't think, at all anymore, but he was a guy that at 50 yards, he'd have bullets touching. He was super, super accurate. So it would have been interesting had he been here. Watching the Revolver scores is really fascinating because Poggi has done this in the past, and I kind of expected him to do this. Is the first couple of days, he's just hanging around the lead. Like, you're kind of looking, I think McGinty was up maybe 20 points after day 1, and then they were kind of tied after day 2. And I told Jeff, I said, watch him. The first 2 stages, Poggi's going to crush it tomorrow, and he's gonna put a gap on him, and then he'll finish with a big gap on him. And sure enough, Poggi came out day 3, and he won like the first 3 or 4 stages, and ended up with over a 5% lead there at the end. And Poggi's one of the few guys in our sport that he can kind of ratchet up and ratchet down his shooting based on what he needs to do. I very much want to see Poggi shoot something besides Revolver, because a lot of people want to give Poggi crap. Like, well, let's see what you can do in production. I bet you can't even finish within 80% in production. Well, he's finishing at 80% of the production winner or higher with a Revolver. Like, he's already doing that with a Revolver. Give him 10 rounds and an easier trigger, I'm going to guess that he's going to do quite well.
Yeah, probably. So, yeah, we all picked Poggi.
Yeah, he ended up winning 11 of 21 stages. That helps a lot.
Yep.
So next, let's do. What do you want to do next?
So just sorry, I was looking. So in the overalls, he was 16%.
70%, yeah.
Yeah, but he was 16% behind Nils in the overalls. Right. So yeah, you're talking roughly probably 18%. Like, he shot 82% of Nils at the same match. A couple extra rounds of the gun makes a big difference there. So just to put that out there. What'd you say was next, Jeff? I'm sorry.
Single. Let's just go single stack. That's the next one up.
All right, single stacks. So the top 3 ended up, we've already said it, but Elias, Cernigaj, and Vlieger.
Yeah. So we all picked Elias, and we all picked Vlieger.
That's not correct.
That's not true.
That is not
You
true.
picked Jeff Cawthon.
You did.
You picked Elias for second.
That is true.
What?
You picked yourself to win. You picked Elias for second, and you picked John for third.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
So Jeremy and I were right, and you were wrong.
Exactly.
Is the shortest way to say this.
Yes, you are correct.
Yeah, Tater and I both had the same picks of Elias, Vlieger, and Jeff. We just honestly, like, Cernigaj was just I didn't know what he was going to do. Last year, he wasn't super competitive at Nationals. He was really competitive at EHC, and so just didn't know what to expect out of him. But he shot really well. And Tyler had Vlieger, Elias, and Seeklander.
Yeah.
So Tyler missed. He missed all around.
Missed. Production.
Oh, the
Jeremy's
drama.
correct.
All of the drama. Nils won. Here's the thing that happened in production. Okay, Saul was leading after day one, and he was shooting well the first part of day two. And
2.5 stages.
Yeah, 2.5 stages, and he got DQ'd on the standard stage. He cooked a round off in a reload. So Sal was gone, which is a huge disappointing because he was shooting really well. He was beating Nils at the time, and I would have liked to have seen where he finished. But so we ended up, the top three were Nils, JJ, and Brian Giovannini. And pretty big gap between all three of those. It was just under 5% between Nils and JJ, and then Brian was at 91% of Nils. So pretty big gap between the top three there. None of us had Brian finishing top three. I don't believe.
I did say, are you guys all sleeping on Giovannini? That's in the record.
But you
and
also...
I did have JJ, and I got first totally wrong. But I did have JJ up there in the running. And we went back and forth on that, and I said, nah, this is his redemption run. He's not there to win it, but he's going to be up at the top.
And he was. He passed Chrono.
Actually, we talked to JJ, and he said he's
a big fan.
Podcast, with whether he is or not, he said he's been listening.
Yeah. He said we had the best podcast. He loved it. So that was great. Jeff got really nervous whenever he said he'd been listening to the podcast. That's all I know. I could just see Jeff starting to sweat.
I was a little nervous. But yeah, he said he showed up a day early and got all three of his guns' equipment checked to make sure that they fit. So we're seeing it, ladies and gentlemen. We're seeing JJ take the initiative to correct the things that have been taking him out of matches. You love to see it.
The biggest thing I love about what I saw out of JJ is after the match, almost any time in the past, there was a while there in the past, if he didn't win the match, there were excuses for why he didn't win. Always. His post after this match was simply to congratulate the other shooters. There was no excuse. There was no nothing. It was just, hey, I got beat. Nils shot great. Congratulations, Nils. I'm just roughly saying what I remember. There was no excuses in there. I think that bodes well for JJ in the future. I don't know about Beretta's working or breaking and all of that and dealing with that stuff in the future. But a JJ that's not making excuses for himself is a dangerous JJ.
That's right. And we love to see professional shooters acting professionally.
Yes.
Ooh, how do we all fare on the prop bet?
Oh yeah, let's get into that.
I don't have that written down, but Phil shot a good match. Phil had an incredibly impressive build drill. He shot what did he shoot there? Like a
173.
A 173 from surrender. Like, he should be in the build drill challenge, apparently. Phil's an incredibly talented guy. He finished 7th place, just behind our boy Tyler Turner. Tyler Turner had a fantastic match. We got to talk about him. He shot great. Phil was in 7th at 87.54%. So,
Damn.
I picked him as 84%.
Yeah.
A couple of you guys picked him in the 90s.
You picked him 14th at 84. Jeremy.
Yeah, well, that's before everybody quit production.
Oh. Jeremy picked him 6th at 92. I picked him 7th at 89. And
so you're closest.
9th at 87.
Wow. So I would say
you and Tyler are wash. And I gotta say, Tyler made a liar out of me because I picked him as 6th at 90%.
And he was 89.98%.
Yeah, but he didn't. Like, man, you couldn't have found one more Charlie, dude.
Right.
Think of me in that moment, and you didn't.
Wow.
That's a good pick.
Yeah, you nailed that one good.
Jeremy picked Tyler for 5th, and I picked him for 8th. So. Awesome finish.
Yeah, if he had, he was only like 14 points away from Casey Reid. So if he had shot one less mic, then he would have made my prediction. Dadgummit, Tyler.
In fairness to him, he shot 2 mics on the match. That was a match that once I started seeing videos from it, I'm like, Tyler is going to excel here.
Yeah.
Like when it comes to hitting things, like he is going to hurt people's feelings.
Yep. Yeah, he did great.
Yeah.
Okay, limited. This now we're starting to get into the surprise divisions. Limited.
This is the most exciting winner. This is, for me at least, by far the most exciting winner.
Absolutely. We probably should have led the whole episode with this. But Scott Brown, our boy, repping a Hit Factor hat. He was wearing a Hit Factor hat the whole time he was shooting. So we love that. I need to send him some fresh ones. I had some extras with me. I should have given him some there. I didn't think of it. So Scott, next time I see you, I'll bring you an extra hat, maybe at IPSC Nationals. Big perk of winning limited nationals. He crushed everybody.
Did. Yeah.
Like we were staying with Bob Crow was in our house, staying there. He said, dude, he's putting a second on every stage on every shooter on the Super Squad. He's just crushing it. He won by 3.5% over Sauerland, who had won a whole bunch of matches. And like I'm super excited for Scott. So he's the youngest person to ever win limited. So he took that title from Nils. Nils was 20, I think, when he won his first one, and Scott's 18. So really, really impressive against a really solid field.
Freaking awesome. So what were our top 3?
The top 3 finishers were Scott Brown first, Joey Sauerland second, and John Browning in third. That race for third was really, really close from John Browning, Shane Coley, Gianni Giordano, and Bob Crow. They were all in a really tight race the whole time. I think after day 1, Bob was in third. After day 2, I think Shane was in third, and then Browning ends up in third at the end. So they were all super, super close.
So Jeremy picked Gianni, Scott, and then Bob.
Yep, Gianni had a really rough first day. He was really kind of out of it.
Day one, I was like, "Oh, there goes my predictions."
Yeah, he was nuked. I mean, he actually ended up shooting really well day 3 to finish where he did. But yeah, his day 1 was really rough. Maybe first time on our power rankings. First time he had made it on there. I don't know. Maybe got too much expectations for him. I don't know.
It's a heavy burden.
Yeah, it is.
It
is.
Potato picked Gianni, Joey, and then Scott. Tyler picked Joey, Gianni, Coley. And I picked Scott, Joey, Browning for the win.
Crushed it.
Oh my goodness. Woo!
Absolutely.
Somebody
crushed
finally got something right.
Wow.
Wow.
That is a job well done, Jeff. You absolutely crushed it. I was
fourth place at single stack nationals, first place in unlimited picks.
Yeah, I mean that's more impressive than fourth place. I was going back and forth between John Browning and Bob Crow for third, and when I had to support my boy Bob, and he had a mic no shoot on his second to last stage. He was there, he was in, he would have been third, or at least he would have been. I don't know if that would have got him third, but that would have got him really, really, really close. And that mic no shoot pushed him down. That was kind of the nature of the match. Shane Coley was to me a huge surprise. It's not a surprise that Shane Coley would finish in the top 5 of the nationals, just that he hasn't shot this well in probably 2 years. This kind of came out of nowhere for him, and I wouldn't necessarily have expected a match like this to be one that he would have really excelled at. But he did. So again, good job, Scott. I know there were lots of people saying lots of things before this in the limited division, and so I was excited that Scott won. He shot really well. So we watched this limited super squad's very first stage of the match, and it was actually one of the, besides the 18 that we talked about, it was probably the second most challenging stage. And these guys, I mean, all of them were getting up there. The number of extra shots being fired was insane. And Scott gets up there and shoots, and he does Scott things, and he ends up like he calls a mic on a target that he's moved past, and he literally jumps 6 feet out of the shooting area to make up a shot out of it, and ends up.
Dude, I thought he was just gonna shoot all the way to the ground.
Yeah.
Like he did not pull a leg up to because he was just falling out, and he did not put a leg underneath him until he was damn close to the ground. He fell for a long time.
Yeah, being 18 is cool. But he finished, and so he kind of had that. He had a bunch of makeups, and his time. He got back, and his brother had already shot it, and his brother was 6 or 7 seconds faster than he was. And Scott was there was no way he was 6 seconds faster than me. And his dad's well, apparently he was, which was hilarious because his dad was I don't want to listen to you complain. Get over it. But Scott went back and looked at his phone and tracked on his phone. No, his stage was 6 seconds faster than what the recorded time was in the deal. So he went to RO and said, "Look, RO, my time seems suspicious. I don't, none of the times are up in this, this seems wrong." And of course they couldn't use the video review, but Scott could use that as hey, this seems suspicious. Luckily on that stage, they were using AMG timers that synced with the tablet. And so they were able to go back and look at the splits in the tablet, and there's a 7 second. There's an additional shot 7 seconds later that did not make sense with everything. And they actually did not make him reshoot it. They simply took that split off, which I thought was appropriate. They were able to determine the right score based off the timer, and they had changed it and adjusted it. So that was cool. It was a big plus for using the AMG timer. It was also a big plus for Scott paying attention to, hey, this time doesn't seem right. Let's check it out. And sure enough, it was incorrect. So
yeah, I mean that's a really good case for when you get up to a stage and people are shooting, pay attention to what the time is that people are shooting at, the pace.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get up to approve your time, make sure that shit looks correct. Make sure it's not crazy, before you hit approve.
Yeah, actually looking at the tablet is something, is a new commitment for me in 2024 before I hit approve. I've always just mashed it, and this last year at Nationals, I approved 2 scores that were erroneous. Both of them, they went back and actually corrected, but once I got the email, I opened up the email and I'm oh, no, I didn't do that. but I just mash approve, because I don't want to be the holdup where it's raining or whatever, and you just want to get it done.
Yep.
And I think 2024, I'm going to make sure it's correct the first time. Because it's a lot easier to get it changed before you've approved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, it's also a huge plus for matches, especially big matches like this. But if there's any way for you to be using the AMG timers or whatever, any of the other, I think there are other timers that will also sync with practice score. Man, that's such a good thing to have. It's great to have as competitors just to be able to go back and look at your stuff and get data to analyze. But then, yeah, for situations like this, in the past, the RO would have just said, well, I can't look at your video and I have no way to look at this to see if it's wrong. The score stands. And all of a sudden he's basically 8 seconds down on the match. So that was good to see. The funny thing is he had 8 deltas on his first stage of the match. On that stage, Scott did. He shot 8 deltas on his very first stage, and he won the match. And he came back and finished. Said, "Look, the deltas were all I had because my gun was shaking so hard. The gun was just shaking the deltas, and the targets were very far. Like the targets that were very challenging shooting. But it's crazy to me how much that boy can shoot deltas and hang them on the edge of targets, but he keeps them on the targets. He has a knack for at least keeping them on the targets. So that's good. Then the last surprise, limited optics. I don't know if there's a ton to cover here other than Max won. And look, Jeff actually picked Max. He was the only one to pick Max. Jeff was on fire with his picks for this match. He's starting to turn into Avance. Jeff had Max, KC, and then he had Hyder. I can't remember. I don't think Hyder was third.
No, I think he was like...
No, he was not. Trace Decker was.
Trace Decker was third.
Because you put him on the hit factor list.
He was.
So he got that bounce.
Yep.
That's what it was. It gives and it takes away.
That's right.
So for Gianni, it took away. For Trace, it was the bounce that he needed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which I don't know if...
And as he said, he registered very late for the match and didn't practice for it at all.
Okay. So maybe
impressive
we
match.
didn't know that he was shooting limited optics when we...
No, we didn't know he was shooting. He registered very late.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like we probably would have picked him if we'd have known because he's doing really well.
Yeah, he has.
Yeah, well, I picked Tom Castro, and he finished, 2% ahead of Tom Castro.
Yeah, Castro was fourth.
Oh, nice. That's a good finish for Castro.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Max Legrand is not just a PCC national champion. He's now a national champion with a handgun. So, obviously a very talented shooter.
Well, it's...
and he did it by shooting 92% of points, which, to be clear, nobody in any other division shot 92% of points.
No, KC Eusebio was at 87 in second place for there.
Right. The limited winner, I think, was 90 or 91%.
Yep.
With major.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they had a dot. Come on.
They had a dot in capacity. That makes a big difference.
Absolutely. But I'm just saying it's the only 92% of points in the entire match, to
right.
Maybe in singles. Or maybe Henning did, actually. Henning did. Henning was the other 92% of points with major.
Wow. That's impressive.
I think they shot the same style. Just one had high capacity and a dot.
Yep. I would guess that's probably the case. So that was nationals. I hope we don't see another match like that in the future. Unfortunately, nationals, the setup as far as arrangements for next year, it is the exact same divisions just in Alabama. So I think that was a really poor decision on USPSA's part to put limited optics with all the other iron sight divisions. I'm sure they're just trying to fill the match, but it's going to be tough to fill matches.
It's a bad idea in so many levels too, because it's also going to cannibalize shooters, because anyone who's done with their world shoot qualification in an iron-sighted division based on their 2 IPSC nationals that happen 5 months apart just won't go. Doesn't mean that they'll just... So then you won't have the best shooters in the iron-sighted divisions, and you won't have high participation. And so I mean, again, people who are shooting these matches in part for World Shoot qualifications, they'll be done in April, depending on how this match went for them. So they can sit this one out. It's the last one.
Yeah.
So you'll have a USPSA Nationals where the best shooters in the divisions don't need to attend.
Yep.
And based on how the match is likely to be run, nobody would blame them for not attending.
Yeah, nobody wants to pay thousands of dollars to go shoot a match like this. Like if USPSA is worried about bringing in money, this was a good way to anybody that was new to shooting nationals. It's a good opportunity to make them not want to come back to shoot nationals because it's just a beatdown. I had one last thing that I meant to say, and I don't know if anybody's going to get to this point in the audio, but if you've not shot nationals before, you come and shot this, or maybe you have, but you haven't shot a ton. I would not drastically change my practices based on this nationals. I would not all of a sudden just change, like, I'm going to start shooting 50-yard targets in practice all the time, and like 25-yard no shoots and 30-yard zebras, just so that I know that I'll be prepared for the next nationals. I don't think we're going to keep seeing matches like this. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's going to necessarily be the case. So I don't know that I would make a drastic change to how I'm training based on this nationals, because it was not representative of our sport in any way, in my opinion. I do expect nationals to be a higher level of difficulty than a lot of our sectional matches, but I felt like this went so far beyond it that it wasn't representative of what USPSA is. And so to me, that's a bit of a bummer. So that's all I had to say about nationals. We don't have any Patreon shout outs this episode.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, we do?
Yeah. We got a new guy with new shout out.
Oh. Do it.
Okay. So this is from Cowboy Friend. Screen name Cowboy Friend. He says, can I get a shout out to congratulate Don Triplett for taking the win at the Vantage Research 2023 Treasure State Championship, and to Scott Meredith, Chris Triplett, Micah Swan, John Headland, Frank Thornton, and the rest of the CDA Spokane crew for rounding out the top 10. Nice shout out. I had a couple things to say, but first, this episode is brought to you by Shooters Connection. Shooters Connection sponsors a ton of matches throughout the country. They got everything you need for the range and practice. I ordered my IPSC magwell from them. It's a Dawson IPSC magwell, but Shooters Connection does carry a lot of Dawson products. So, got that IPSC Dawson stainless arched mainspring housing to go on my 1911 to get ready for IPSC Nationals. So, thank you, Shooters Connection. I ordered that this week, and it'll be here this week. So, helping me out, getting me stuff shipped out quick, and I appreciate them very much. So, use the code in the description to support the podcast, support Shooters Connection. We do very much appreciate them. And then one other thing I had to say, actually two other things. We got two more things. First, who were our lady national champions? Let's go ahead and shout them out.
Jesse Eusebio won limited optics.
Yeah.
Randy Rogers won single stack.
Nice. Congrats.
Ashley Robertson. All these ladies have gotten married. Not all of them, but Ashley and Jesse who got married. Ashley, I believe it's Robertson. It was Ashley Rourke, shoots for Glock. She won production.
Congrats.
And I think it was one of the Williams sisters won limited. I get them confused. Jalise won.
Jalise, because Justine was shooting limited optics.
Yeah. Jalise, the older of the two, won.
The younger.
Okay, now I'm confused. But one of the Williams sisters won the.
Yeah, so congrats to them. the Lady National Champions.
Yes, very much.
Final thing. At the awards, they did something new. I don't know if they did this at Carry Optics or any of the other nationals, but they were recognizing the top 10% or capped at the top 10 performers in each division, which I thought was cool and a good replacement for something like top 16, since 16 is a bit of an irrelevant number now. So they started recognizing, like in single stack, there was 60 shooters, so they recognized the top 6 in that division. And they called them up to have a picture in front of the banner individually. So I assume that those people are actually going to get an award for that finish. And then in all the other divisions, they did top 10. So they started at 10th and they worked up to first place, which I liked it. I thought that was actually a really good idea and a nice thing to see from USPSA recognizing the top tier of their divisions, which I feel like we've been kind of crying about for a while. So I was very pleased to see that.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. I was glad to see that, and I was glad and surprised that they did something semi-sensible.
And Mike has corrected me, and Jeremy is also right about Justine is younger.
Thank you. I was actually,
let the record reflect that. You're probably Googling that right now.
I was actually just looking that up, and I was typing out a private message to you that I was correct there.
Wrong.
Wait,
Here,
one.
Jalise did.
Jalise.
The older of the two won. Yeah.
He's the older one?
Yes.
Okay. Congrats. And then one negative to round it out. There was no signage, guys.
Oh,
We pulled up
yes.
to this range, and we had to like stop and ask people where it was. Cause this.
Or did you pull into the shotgun entrance and just like go by endless shotgun fields where it's not even clear that there's a pistol bay way down at the end with a couple of like dog-leg turns?
Yeah, like why would you drive down there first? And that part of the range was not even on the map that they put in the match book.
Right.
Like they put the range map in the match book, but the part where the actual match wasn't on that map. Yeah,
And even
there's no sign like USPSA Nationals this way. And then even when you got there, you had to go inside the building to see any sort of signage that was USPSA Nationals.
yeah, there was nothing like
that was my impression when we were there, is that the trap, like a weekly trap match, was a bigger deal than the Nationals match down at the end.
Yeah, like all they had to have, like they could have just put up target stands with targets on it, like USPSA targets that we all recognize, with an arrow, and we could have all known where to go. Otherwise, you had no freaking clue where to go there. And yeah, Jeff was totally right. There were no signage. Like there should be at least some sort of banner. USPSA should at least own a big banner, even if all it says USPSA Nationals. It doesn't have to say any other kind of, no other specifications, so they can reuse it. It shouldn't be a huge expense. Like put that up so that people walk through it, walk under it, they drive it, they at least see it when they drive up. Something to make people think, hey, this is a special event. Because otherwise, no, there was nothing there. It wasn't a special event in any way. Jeff's right.
Not that you are bitter.
No, I'm not. I mean, like, I would happily give that up for better stages, but all of that could be done pretty easily if anybody cared. Like, if anybody at USPSA cared, that would be fixed. I just don't think they care.
Yeah.
To be fair, some of them got served with papers at this match for lawsuits, and we're not getting into all that stuff tonight. But so maybe they have bigger fish to fry.
But I did hear from a lawyer in your guys' Discord that basically is, as long as you just say nah, I can't hear you, you can't be sued.
Yeah, that's what Bill said. I'm sure Bill's
pretty much in those exact words.
Yep.
Only they were more colorful gifts. But yes, I've kept you up late enough. I'm sorry.
Yep. Potato, have you killed a moose yet?
No,
Do you still have days?
I can't use them, but I do. I have 2 more days, and I got to go back to work tomorrow.
It's time to be hooky. You need to kill a moose. I want a moose tongue.
We need moosin'.
I've seen moose. I've got video of moose, but I don't know have a dead moose.
Why didn't you shoot him? You missed?
No, it was a mother and a calf.
They still eat?
Yeah, I only have an antlered permit.
Look, you can super glue stuff on there. It'll be all right.
Never mind. I'm not going to say anything. I will say I am now probably one of the world's foremost experts on moose poop. I have scouted more sign in the last 4 days because I didn't do any preseason scouting than almost anyone can imagine. Man, I excel at finding bedding sites that were just recently vacated.
That's always great. Always great.
Fresh steaming poop.
Oh, bummer. I'm disappointed. But thank you guys for
at least
listening.
3 years before I can try again. No.
Yeah. So thank you guys for listening. We appreciate it. If you have any comments or questions, please let us know. Our next match we'll be at is IPSC National. So if you'll be there, stop and say hi. We didn't talk about how unapproachable Jeff is. We'll talk about that next time. And we'll work on that in the future to make him be nicer and more approachable. So,
and after you're done saying hi to them at IPSC Nationals, I'm 1 squad behind them. So come say hi to me.
Oh, yes. And also, I have beef with Joel, your buddy Joel Potato, so we can discuss that in the future too.
Joel Fisher is awesome.
No, he's not.
I love Joel Fisher.
No, he's not.
Even if he thinks you're Jeff, he thinks you're Jeremy. Congratulations, by the way, Jeff or me.
Yeah, Joel's not awesome in any way. He's now my sworn enemy, and I will try to take his shins out anytime I see him in the future.
He's such a lovely human being, even if
no, he's not.
Jeff's and Jeremy's apart.
Like,
ugly and hideous.
It's like the one unforgivable sin for Jeremy.
I can't.
To mistake him for me.
I can't imagine much.
I can't wait to be in
worse?
Volusia and introduce you as Jeff Cawthon from the Hit Factor podcast.
Oh, geez. I will pull your beard hairs out. I'm just going to reach up and yank them. They're coming out. All right. Thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you later.